Story begins with a girl picking corn at her job. She managed to gather a lot of crops, but it was not easy at all. Due to physical exertion, her whole body ached. You could see how she fell apart on the go. At some point, all the corn was harvested. But Celia started complaining to her boss because she was tired. He didn't like it. This behavior reminded him of a 70-year-old woman who complains about her knees. But she is still young, and it was strange why she complains that she is having a hard time. Celia wanted him to shut up as soon as possible. After some time, she told her boss that the work was over, so she would already go home. But it wasn't there. Her boss thought that she did too little work to be able to go home and regretted that she hired such an assistant. It seemed to her that he demands too much, because she cannot work all day from morning to evening. But it turned out that it was so difficult for her to cope with these tasks, due to the fact that it is difficult for her to adapt to the flat climate, since she lives here quite recently. She used to live in the north, in a small village. In such a climate it was hard to grow any food. It was constantly snowing there. Besides, the area was almost the entire mountainous, so there were not so many inhabitants there. One time she had to get food when she was only 19. And if she can't find some food, Grandma can get very sad. She does not live with her parents because they died a long time ago under an avalanche. This happened very often, so in a sense it was the norm of their lives. So Grandma had to raise her alone, but at some point Grandma got sick in the middle of winter. Due to the fact that it was very difficult to get food, every time she tried to go after it, she did not give any hope of it. After all, there was only snow around, and if she finds some food, it will be a great happiness. When suddenly the girl notices something unusual. Something lay far away in the snow and shone with a golden glow. It was hard for her to guess what it was. For a long time, the girl tried to understand whether it is worth approaching this subject. She was very curious. She could not resist and ran to see what was there. It turned out to be a fruit, she thought. Celia immediately ran to take this fruit home and show it to her grandmother. At some point, she became interested and stopped to look at this fruit, and immediately thought about taking a small bite and tasting what this fruit tastes like. But she didn't manage to bite off a small piece. Half of the fruit was left. Apparently, grandmother will get very little. At some point, the girl felt something was wrong. Apparently, the fruit was spoiled. The taste was so disgusting that she regretted that she tried it. But due to the fact that it was not customary to spit out food, I had to finish everything that I bit. Besides, he got it with such great difficulty. Celia has never eaten food through strength, but still failed to swallow, and apparently have to spit it out. At some point, she heard someone's voice, but it was not clear who it could be. After all, there was no one next to her. Someone asked her, "Do you even understand what you've done?" And from that moment the fun begins. She saw a man who was incredibly handsome. She thought he looked like a sculpture. Everything about him was perfect. After a while, the girl realized that he was standing in front of her completely without clothes. It seemed very strange to her because he could die in this form if he stays in this weather for a long time. Apparently he knew what kind of fruit the girl thought was in her hands, and he liked what just happened. He realized that Celia just ate him. She probably shouldn't have done that. But why? What's so special about it? But the girl denied having eaten this fruit. It was really stupid because she had crumbs from him on her face. Well, why did this guy react so much to the fact that Celia bit off this fruit? He was clearly angry about it. He pulled her to him and was outraged that his essence went to a man, and did not understand how she even dared to touch her, having made a terrible mistake. As soon as he left her for a while, everything did not go according to plan. He had no choice but to destroy it. Celia did not expect to hear such a thing, and did not know what to do in this situation. After all, the essence is completely absorbed into the human heart in 10 years. He began to say some terrible things to her, because he was furious, which scared her very much. It seemed to her that he was inadequate. After that, he started to take her hand. It looked very intimidating. The girl tried to save herself, but he held her too tightly. She asked for some strength to save her from this inadequate person. And at some point everything worked out. For some reason he let her go, as if someone fulfilled her desire. She couldn't even believe her eyes, and didn't know what had just happened. This guy realized that he had no time at all, and for some reason picked up that fruit. It turned out that he decided to eat it. But it is still not clear what is so special about him. At some point, some strange things started to happen. He began to turn into a huge golden dragon. And at that time, the girl just watched what was happening and could not believe that this was happening in front of her eyes. After that, he and the dragon told her that she was lucky and he would not destroy her right now. But in 10 years, he would take what belongs to him back and find her wherever she was. So he warned that she would not even worth trying to hide. A lot of time has passed since that moment. Celia has already grown up a little, and now she is not a little girl at all. She got a girlfriend. Her name was Ruina. They spent a lot of free time together, and from that moment on, that story with the dragon remained in the past. Who knows? Maybe then she was so hungry that she began to hallucinate. Once they were talking, and a friend told her that once she overheard the conversations of soldiers, and apparently some important person was coming to them. But why does he go to them? To which a friend replied, something was stolen from him a long time ago. He said that he had been waiting for this moment for 10 years to return the lost. But it reminds me of something. Some northerner hid his thing and then fled to the plains. And Celia seems to remember something, and she began to guess who it could be. But what to expect next? And then she definitely understood everything. He goes after her. After she realized that that crazy dragon was looking for her, she could not calm down in any way and began to think of what could happen in the worst possible scenario. But her friend didn't understand why it scared the girl so much, since she doesn't know anything about that story. While they stood together, Celia stopped hearing her friend and came up with a plan. What should she do next? Because she remembered that that dragon promised to find her and destroy her no matter what it cost him. After a while, she decided how to act, asked if they had paint. But why did she? Her friend began to remember if she had some. But Celia did not care about the color. The main thing for her was to do everything in her power so that the dragon would not find her. Girl's friend could not understand what was happening to her because she behaves inappropriately. Plus, it doesn't explain why this news scared her so much. And what does the hair dye have to do with it? Celia had snow-white skin, black hair, and light blue eyes. It is this appearance that is typical for the northerners, and for sure that dragon remembered the girl like that. They finally found the right paint and a friend offered her help as it was hard to watch her friend can't find her place and is constantly in fear. After a few hours, her hair was dyed. It's time to look at the result, but what color did her hair dye? It turned out that the paint was green, and it was unusual to see her with such hair. A friend started joking about how she now looks like a small tree. Of course, Celia did not know that her hair would turn green, and she was very upset about this. But the main thing is that now the dragon will not recognize her, and perhaps she will be able to save herself. And since she had no other options, she had to take such a risk and walk with green hair, it was hard for her to calm herself and think positively. With this hair color, she does not look like a northerner, and stood out from the crowd very much. This could, on the contrary, draw even more attention to her, but nothing can be fixed. People around didn't like it much, as they spoiled her beautiful appearance by dyeing her hair in this terrible color. It seemed that she was overgrown with moss. She was advised to at least dress up pretty on such a special day and divert attention from unfortunate hair color. At this time, Mr. Calyx arrived. In order to greet him, it was necessary to stand on the sides and throw flowers at his feet and say that he is beautiful. But there was one problem. The girl stood first, and this increased the chances that he could notice her. But he can't destroy it right on the carpet. And thoughts were only about this. Celia seemed not to notice everything that was happening around. When suddenly the very moment came, he descends from the stairs. At this time, the girl tried to calm herself and convince herself that everything will go well. With every minute of fear was more and more. But nothing can be done. It seemed to her that she betrays herself very much by being very nervous. She even closed her eyes so as not to look at him. When suddenly she heard that he was approaching, and immediately opened her eyes. He got closer and closer, and this moment seemed to last forever. The girl examined every part of his body, thereby gave herself away very much and stood out from the crowd. But it was too hard to look away, as he became even more handsome. At some point she remembered how aggressive he was when they last saw each other. And it did not give her peace of mind. Because of this, it was clear from the outside that she was very nervous. when suddenly he looked at her. And she thought he recognized her. She thought that if she threw at least one petal at him, he would remember her. There was a feeling that he was about to turn right in her direction. As he walked past her, it seemed like hours had passed, and when he was far enough away from her, she exhaled and realized that he hadn't noticed her, at least not yet. During this time, Celia sweated a lot, since at that time her fate and even her life were being decided. It seemed to her that she could not survive this moment and pass out before he noticed her. At this time, the girls who were standing nearby began to discuss him. They said that he had a terrible character and at the same time a chic appearance, and that because of his beauty they almost could not fall down. Even though he had already left, it took a long time to calm down. But it was necessary to get together and serve the guest, because her personal problems were of no interest to anyone, and she had to do her job. Guest was invited to sit on the sofa. We tried to create the most comfortable conditions for him to stay at their place. Then asked what is the purpose of his visit, at which time Celia began to panic again and hoped that the purpose of his visit had nothing to do with her. Otherwise, she would definitely go crazy. But what he said shocked her so much that she wanted to fall through the ground. He said what she was most afraid of, and the worst thing is that she was literally a few meters away from him, and her fate depended only on him. He said that the man who took his property had fled, and when he finds it, will tear apart. It completely frightened the girl. It seemed to her that it would be a miracle if she remained alive at least until the end of this day, because she perfectly understood that he was serious, and that fruit was very important for him, and it was not worth even taking it in hands then. And someone asked him if it turns out that the person he is looking for is on his territory. At this time, the girl could not hear anything. Because of the panic, she was speechless and did not hear anything. To which the guy replied that he was not sure yet, and asked if all the villagers were here at the moment. The man offered to call all the residents, or to help find that person if he describes the criminal in detail. To which he smiled and said that it was not worth it. Every minute she feels like she's about to pass out. The guest decided to catch his prey himself. After she heard his voice, her sense of anxiety rose very strongly. She got goosebumps that he could destroy her at any moment. The man did not cease to please the guest, offered various options and his help, so that he could quickly find that thief, then offered him lunch. At this time, the girl was able to calm herself down a little and noticed that he did not recognize her. But if he lingers here for a long time, it is not known how this could end. So she was counting a minute before he finally left the palace to leave. And then finally she can live her quiet life, and are not afraid that someone is looking for her in order to destroy. It was time for lunch. A chic table was laid for the guest, where there was a lot of delicious food. Everything was done in the best possible way so that he was satisfied. But while the girl was watching him, he noticed it, and asked why she was looking at him, and constantly watching him. She didn't expect to get his attention. That's too bad. Apparently, he suspected something or it could happen soon. And then it seemed to her that her end had come. He looked at her and waited to hear some kind of answer, to which she tells him that such an honored guest has not visited them for a long time. But he said that she was not just watching him, she was watching him. At this point, the girl ran out of all the arguments to divert suspicion from herself. Did he really understand that it was she who he had been looking for all this time? He got up from the table, and he started getting closer and closer to her. At that moment, her whole life flew before her eyes. She had already come to terms with the fact that he understood who she was. Now, he repeated and said he asked a question, then asked why she was looking at him like that. Is that all there is? She has no more chances? He leaned towards her. She has a second to come up with something. Any excuse, even the most ridiculous one, for him to stop looking at her. But instead of thinking of what to say to him, thoughts that he looks too chic come into her head. She even staggered a little when she saw him, because he is so beautiful like a sculpture. But it was not the best time to consider it. Because this beauty was too deceptive, you had to think about something else. She even caught herself thinking that apparently she fell in love with him at first sight. But it was necessary for her to come to her senses, because at this moment her fate and life are decided. Because everything can change at any second. It was as if she was not in the moment and did not control herself from the outside. And at a time when she did not control herself, she said out loud that she loved him, and fell in love at first sight. And the most interesting thing is that he heard it. The worst thing is that the girl said it several times directly looking into his eyes. And looks like she needs to get it fixed ASAP. She did not know how she would do it, but she had to act very quickly because there was no time to think. Celia continued to carry all sorts of nonsense. She talked about how she gets up early, can wash in cold water, and her hair does not fall out. She does not need to take care of her parents, and also she does not have children, and that she loves snowmen, eat anything, and run fast. It was so ridiculous from the outside that she drove herself into this corner. And after that she told me that she does a great massage, to which he asked her, can he call her in marriage? She no longer knew how to get out of this ridiculous situation because she said too much. Then he thought that the girl was completely crazy and ordered her to be destroyed immediately. To which Celia said that she wanted to marry him. She agreed. The situation was too tense and he joked that he was not bad at dreaming. After that he left. It was lucky that the girl was still alive after this conversation, and thought that a miracle happened, and he did not notice anything. Though it was amazing, she was within a hair's breadth of him recognizing her. At this time he asked him not to touch, and to prepare a bedroom for him so that he could rest, to which he was promised that they would prepare a room for him, and it would be in the best possible way with the best servants for his comfort. Then he was offered to choose a girl to serve him, and which he will like. There were a lot of them. For sure he could choose one to his taste. But he said that they did not suit him. But then something happened that no one could have expected. He picked that strange girl he just talked to. It was Celia. Yes, oddly enough, he chose her. She didn't expect that after such a conversation, he would want to do something with her. After that, he decided to play a little joke on her, and compared her to a caterpillar. It offended her because he said it because of her hair color. Though she shouldn't be offended because he's not mad at her, and that's a good sign. I should just make her laugh at it and support his joke. It's time to find out what that situation 10 years ago looked like from his side. It was the last transformation. Every 100 years, dragons change their appearance, and this happens 6 times. And just for the last time, becomes an adult. He's the golden dragon, the most famous of them all. They say that once the golden dragon fell in love with the goddess, and she raised him to heaven. But how much can you admire yourself? He is too busy admiring himself. Why does he need someone else? And how could the golden dragon do this? It was very stupid. What are you looking at? He asked, for which the person standing next to asked for forgiveness, because he wanted to make sure that he successfully completed his transformation. Apparently it was his assistant. He said that only he can worry about such things. It so happened, said his assistant, that the master makes too many mistakes, so you have to watch him and control his every step. And reminded him of one case. One day for the 5th time he took the essence and slept for 10 years, and once again. Once he founded a country in the human world, and then left it to its fate. After that foolishly accepted flowers from a dragon, and almost died. To which he said that his assistant simply increases. But he thought that, of course, because the master did not have to solve all the problems after that. At some point his assistant offered to meet at this place in 10 years. And literally in seconds of this moment he can finally absorb it. It turned out that way, Essence. But he almost forgot that he needed a holy stone. So I left him to lie in the snow until he came back. And just at that moment a girl was nearby. It was Celia. She decided to pick up the essence because she thought it was some kind of fruit, and she needed to take it home as soon as possible. Essence contains the magical power of the dragon. It is the key to existence and the source of power. A dragon that has lost its essence is no different from a lizard, so it is valued and treated very carefully. It can only be divided with that, whom the dragon recognizes as his destiny. But it turned out that the essence was bitten by a girl. That's why he got so angry then. He did not understand how she dared to take what did not belong to her. And the fact that he hates her so much is fair enough as it turned out. Therefore, he will never forgive her for this. Here is the other side of the story. Now everything has fallen into place. While he stood next to the girl he chose as his servant, he asked her why she was worried. Because it was very noticeable that she would have to bathe him. She didn't like it much. Besides, she will see him again. Although it's pretty good. On the one hand, she expected this, but on the other hand, it was a little humiliating, because she is in the role of a servant. But sometimes she remembered that he was looking for the person he was going to destroy, and it was her. At some point, he told her that he understood that she was crazy about him, but it would be nice if she pulled herself together and fulfilled her duties until she was fired. but she could not understand how he could influence the fact that she could be fired. In general, the situation was quite tense. She blamed herself a lot for taking this so-called fruit as a child. It brought her a lot of problems. Then she proceeded to bathe him. This was the first time she had done such a thing, and thought that she would give him the most unforgettable bath. She couldn't take her eyes off him. She fell more and more in love with him every minute. It was hard for her to understand how a human body can be so beautiful, even though it's not human at all. There was an irresistible desire to touch him. Every move he made was divine to her. Every part of his body was examined very carefully by her. The main thing was not to show. She felt very strange because she was with a person who could potentially destroy her just by knowing who she really is. But on the other hand, she is in love with him and can't take her eyes off him. It was an incredible pleasure for her to be near him. But she still decided to focus and do her job, though it's very hard to think of anything other than his body. The girl was very much afraid to overdo it and make him uncomfortable, because black is hard brush. But at one point she decided to make him say that he was in a lot of pain, and she was fired so that she would no longer catch his eye. I hoped that he would say that he was in too much pain and complain about her to the main thing, because he must not like it. You wanted him to kick her out and call her another maid? While carefully watching him for his reaction. But surprisingly, he was absolutely calm. At some point, the shower brush dropped and he noticed it. She asked to wait a bit to bring a new one, to which he said to stop being afraid as if he had never seen a man. Of course, this was very unexpected for her, because she thought that he would now complain about her for some reason, or say something rude and unpleasant. After that, he asked to wash his hair, after which she turned to him as the owner, and said that she would do everything. But he did not like it, after which he said his name. But why did he do it? At that moment, she was very frightened and did not understand what made him angry. Celia asked what was the matter, to which he asked to be called by his name. What kind of owner is this? After all, he has a name. After that, the girl calmed down and it became much easier for her. It was strange for her to realize that now she would have to call him by his name, and decided to continue to work qualitatively, because she understood that it was better not to anger him, though he didn't say anything terrible to her. She tried once again not to give a reason for his aggression. Besides, she liked it when he was silent and watching him. At this time, Celia enjoyed his body, and the fact that he touches. Because he is so handsome, it was also lucky to be with him in such an environment. At some point she realized that she was staring at him too often, and she needed to finish her work as soon as possible. After that, washed the shampoo off his head, and said that everything is ready. But for some reason he did not answer her. She did not understand what was the matter, and thought, why didn't he stand? Maybe you want her to continue. Maybe you should start all over again. She sat next to him for a while, and waited for him to say something. But he didn't make a sound. It started to make her a little angry, and did not understand how long you can lie down. But if she wakes him up, it might be wrong, and it's better not to do it. But still, she tried to wake him up and called him by name. He opened his eyes. It was very abrupt and unexpected, and for some reason abruptly got up from the bath. It was strange. Where could you be in such a hurry? After that, he asked why the girl was looking at him. But actually it was she who should have asked. What should she do next? Because she had already finished washing his hair. He noticed that indeed his head became clear, and she did her job. After that, the girl offered to help him dry off, and it was the most enjoyable moment for her. She touched his body, rubbing it with a towel for a long time. And at some point she again thought that she was too passionate about his body. After that, as always, she began to blush and remember that he was still a dragon and promised to destroy her. But she still managed to calm herself down and stop thinking about his body. Although it was difficult enough for her, how she wanted to be with him in such an environment, but not in the role of a maid. While he did not order her to do something, she looked out the window and noticed that there was an incredibly beautiful night sky outside. But how she wanted to return home as soon as possible and feel completely safe, not hide from anyone and feel free to act. It seems he figured out what she will have to do now. But she really wanted to sleep. Her sleep is delayed farther and farther because you have to fulfill all his whims. And all because of that day. If she had known how it would end, she would never have approached that subject in her life. He asked for a massage after the bath the most. Apparently he didn't care if she was tired or not. for him in the first place was his comfort. Apparently the girl did a good job. He really enjoyed the massage. She understood that he had nothing to scold her for, because everything he asks is done in the best possible way. But still, it would not hurt her to get some sleep. She has been dreaming about this for a long time. While Celia was giving him a massage, he fell asleep as quickly as if he were a child. After all, she likes him a lot more while sleeping, and perhaps the best solution would be not to wake him. The girl sat next to him the whole time he slept. It was a very long time. But she did her duty and did not leave him. And in order not to miss the opportunity, she admired every feature of his face. At some point she said his name. Mr. Callis. At this time he immediately woke up. It turns out he didn't plan to sleep. It happened by accident. He asked how long he slept. It lasted 2 hours. Although it seemed to him he fell asleep for literally 15 minutes, no more. If she only knew, she was told that she was good at giving massages, but now he will make her massage every day until he falls asleep. Actually, there's nothing wrong with that, but he stays up too late. Approximately between midnight and midnight. Okay, if he worked late, that could still be understood. Or had fun with someone, this person, that is, the dragon has no friends at all. The main problem was that he never wants to go to bed early to let go of people who are tired at work. But he did not think about it, or did not want to think about it. Plus, Celia gets very tired at her job, and when she sees him lie down in his soft bed, it's impossible to imagine how much she wants to do the same. But instead, he asks her to start the massage again. And she does not understand how it is possible to be such a person who does not respect the work of other people and their rest. She really wanted to knock him out with her fist, so that he would understand that this is already too much. And at some point he asks her, "Do you like being with me so much? You blushed so much." Of course it is, but she blushed for another reason. She was too tired and did not know how to make it clear that he would let her go home as soon as possible. After all this might not have happened if she hadn't eaten his essence once in childhood. Now she has to pay for it. She has no choice but to put up with what she deserves. And finally she answers him that she just liked him a lot. But it was on purpose. She decided to become an actress and play this most difficult role, so as not to betray the fact that she is very worried about a completely different reason. For her, this evening was poisoned like an eternity. She didn't know when she would finally be able to sleep. And at some point she remembers that Eric is washing again today at her house. Last night. One evening, Eric got out of the shower, and just as the girl returned home, he was glad to see her, and she told how she was doing at work. After that, she asked if he fixed a friend at home, because he comes to her house as if to his own home, and constantly washes at her place. But as it turned out, no one is in a hurry to repair the pipes at his house, and he will bathe with her for a long time. The girl asked Eric why he is swimming now. Did he also work late? To which he replies that he was waiting for her, then tells her the following. But these words surprised her a little, because at the same time he took her hand. He remembered for the guy she serves, and asked if he allows himself too much. She didn't understand why he was interested in this. She is hardly ever at home, and several times he fell asleep while waiting for her. Then said that if suddenly someone makes her do unpleasant things, he will try to help deal with him. She didn't even know what to say to him. The girl thanked him and said that everything was actually fine, and he didn't have to worry about it. He was a little embarrassed for being interested in such things, but she thanked him for being interested and suggested that he go on vacation. Celia did not understand why he started this conversation, after which she left and went to rest. Meanwhile, while the girl is at work, due to a strong desire to sleep, she no longer controls herself, and fell asleep standing up because she couldn't get enough sleep. But even despite that, he still ordered her to massage again. But it's still early. He can't ask her to massage until midnight. Can he see how tired she is? But still she has no right to refuse him, since this is her job and she's obliged to do everything he tells her. Despite being very tired, she continued to carry out orders with the highest quality. It seemed to her that her arms were about to fall off, or she would fall asleep and fall right on top of him. When she gave him a massage, it seemed like she was feeling the ground. He had 2 cold hands due to the fact that he was a dragon. Skin was so snow-white, you can immediately see he does not carry weight, and looks strong at the same time. Once again, Celia caught herself thinking that she was thinking too much about him, and besides, she felt very tired when she touched him. At this time he asked her to be careful because she might fall asleep. She was very infuriated that he did not understand how tired she was. He was usually asleep by this point, but why he was staring at her like that, she couldn't figure out if it was true. At some point he asked to make some movement again. Maybe he meant to press harder, she thought. But what he said next was a huge surprise for her. He asked to touch him. To which she clarified exactly where to touch. To which he stroked her head and told her to touch wherever she wanted. At first it seemed to her that perhaps due to the fact that she was sleepy, she heard. But then he touched her arm and started to look at her in a completely different way. And from here the fun begins. She thinks that this is all a dream, or it was changed. To avoid an awkward situation in case he thought of a joke, Celia replied that she couldn't massage her face. Then he asked why her hands were so cold and put his hand to his face. On the fact that the hands were not cold at all, and vice versa warm. I got the impression that they were just like that. This girl turned out to be in his room. For some time, it was not clear why he changed so much in his behavior. Very abruptly began to pester her to some extent, and do things that are a little incomprehensible. Despite this, Celia did not show that she was just as pleased, and tried to talk to him as if nothing was happening. After that, so that she touches him again and again. It became clear that he was doing this already openly, without hints. This was already beyond the scope of a massage and a working environment. But despite this, there was a feeling that he could destroy her if she touched him at least once. Things got more and more tense. It was not clear what he wanted to achieve with this, because the condition is quite adequate and everything looks like the truth. Celia was starting to worry about this because his behavior changed very drastically. And at some point these touches became not very pleasant. Added to all the problems is this weird behavior, she thought. If Celia had known how this could end, she would not have taken such a risk for nothing. All this time it felt like it was all a dream, because just a few hours ago she could not even think that everything would change so much in a short period of time. And the girl will be in his arms. But she didn't mind at all. If it weren't for that situation 10 years ago, everything would have been completely different. Because she really liked him at first sight, and apparently this is mutual. But only one thing did not give her peace. If suddenly he finds out everything that Celia is hiding, everything can change in a matter of seconds. And it is better not to allow this in any case. It would be better if you pretend to be an ordinary maid, and just wait until he leaves, and then live a normal, quiet life. At some point he asked not to count on anything. It just needs to be forgotten later and not remembered. But despite the fact that she really liked him, most of all the girl wanted to just sleep and forget it like a bad dream, to quickly return to her normal life without fear that someone is looking for her, and there is danger everywhere. I just had to follow his orders so as not to give myself away once again. Plus, it wasn't too hard, and it was a lot better than washing his hair in the bathroom. At that moment it seemed to her that bathing him was the strangest desire on his part. But it turned out that this was not all that he could think of. Celia did not think that he would have to be near him for so long and that the girl would be with him all night, giving out his order. But these desires are actually not the worst, so it's not so bad. After that, nothing like this happened, but I had to constantly give him a massage. Not a single night could do without it. Because of this, the girl had no strength left, because she had been sleeping for a very long time and had already forgotten what rest was. So sometimes she just fell to the ground and started to sleep. This happened even while she was eating, because at work Celia forgot what sleep was. Every new day of hers was no different from the previous one. Every evening she gave a massage to the emperor, and nothing new happened in her life. The girl was already counting the days by the time he left to finally enjoy a safe and quiet life. But he was in no hurry to leave. He liked the fact that everyone around was trying to make his stay in the palace as pleasant and comfortable as possible. Therefore, he did not let go of the opportunity to take advantage of this. Celia suffered the most from this, because she was constantly near him and fulfilled his every request and desire. Every day she got used to him more and more, and was not so much afraid to be with him in the room, because she saw how he treats her better and better. And for a long time he was not angry with her, as he was before, for any reason. Since then, the girl is no longer afraid to touch him, because every day she does the same thing. And for a long time she had not seen any aggression from him or anything like that. And for some reason, he constantly fell asleep literally after 2 minutes of massage, but still asked to do it several times every evening. And when she was convinced that he was sleeping, she simply lay down next to him and slept when she had the opportunity. But not this time. At some point, he grabbed her hand. She did not understand what was happening. Did he really want to cuddle before going to bed again? Celia realized that it would not hurt to go home already. What he did next was quite unexpected. He pulled her towards him to fall asleep together, and she couldn't go anywhere. Sometimes she had to feel disappointed because every morning the girl felt terrible sensations in her body, because she had not slept well for a long time and was constantly under stress on her physical condition. But even the fact that the sun's rays fell into her room brought her joy, because since then, when the Emperor is next to her, Celia has been troubled by a feeling of anxiety and danger. After that, the girl realized that the Emperor was lying next to her, so it's hard to understand what to do in this situation, because he himself insisted that this happen. He can't kick her out after that. In addition, the Emperor hugged the girl all night, and this may mean something. And she couldn't even move. And after all, some time ago, when she was afraid of waiting to meet him, Celia could not even imagine that she would be in the same bed with him at his initiative. The girl is even used to being in his room more often than at home. Nothing can be done about it because resisting is not the best option. You need to be patient for a while. Then she realized that she finally got a good night's sleep and didn't have to get up early to get to work. After that, Celia decided to get out of bed to prevent an awkward situation when the Emperor wakes up and sees her next to him in bed. And suddenly someone knocked on the door. The girl decided to pretend to be asleep because she did not know how to explain what is in his bed while he sleeps. It turned out that someone brought offerings from the elders. This guy did not expect to see that the Emperor is in the same bed with a girl. Mr. Calix began to wake up little by little, and then what happened was what Celia assumed. Codes. The Emperor woke up, saw a servant nearby, and forgot that he himself asked her to lie next to him. He felt embarrassed because that guy saw them together. To justify himself, the Emperor said, could he really sleep with this man? Because it's humiliating to sleep with servants in the same bed. Because of this, he got angry and ordered her to get up immediately. For dragons to share the essence with someone, the same as taking an oath of allegiance. At the same time, when the dragon shares it, his soul and body become very unstable. There are two ways to overcome this period. First, become one with your partner. Second, touch him. Both of these options are impossible for Calix, since he has to be in an unstable state all the time. Most common symptom of this, insomnia. So of course it became clear why he woke up quickly, and why he demanded that the girl immediately get out of his bed. He pushed her very hard, as if Celia had voluntarily gone to sleep next to him. Is now completely gone, she thought, because it seemed that now the Emperor would know about everything. After that he said a strange phrase, that no matter how much he liked her, there was no order to sleep with the Emperor in the same bed. Perhaps he does not remember how he himself invited her to stay with him. Does he really have memory problems? These words were just outrageous for Celia. But despite this, the girl admitted her guilt, despite the fact that she was not guilty of anything, and simply followed his order. Because now is not the best time to argue with him and prove his case. The guy who brought the gift can't believe his eyes. And this irritated him greatly, but still he could only guess what was going on there. After that he offered to see the Emperor's gift, but he was busy scolding his servants. Perhaps this was indicative. After all, it was important to defend his status, no matter what it cost him. Celia took advantage of the moment and quickly ran away while no one was watching. At this time, that guy insisted that the Emperor still take a look at what is inside the box, because it is related to his health, since the elder is worried about his condition. Since the Emperor had no choice, he accepted this kind gesture from the elders. There were quite a lot of gifts, and it became interesting what was inside. But before that, it was necessary to explain what really happened, and how this girl ended up in his bed. But at some point, the Emperor noticed that there were no servants nearby, and realized that she had run away. Despite this explained what happened. He really didn't have to worry about it. He just left the maid overnight to give him a massage. But the problem is not in her, but in the northern child, and she had to endure a lot. Therefore it is urgent to catch him and destroy him. The Emperor seemed like he did something shameful since she was so worried about the massage. Tonight there is still an opportunity to sleep for an hour. because it is a great happiness for her that she will be able to look at the emperor while he sleeps. All this information did not fit in that guy's head. He did not understand what kind of child they were talking about and why she needed to be found immediately. But he had no desire to understand this, because his task was simply to bring as a gift. After some time, the emperor got tired of the presence of this man in his room. He also offered to walk around the village to see the territory. Perhaps it was a good idea because the emperor was in his room all the time and did not see the beauty that is around. Thanks to the girl, there has been no trace of insomnia lately, and it will be possible to go for a walk in a good mood. Surprisingly, the emperor seemed to have forgotten about his goal. He did not even try to start searching. Perhaps this is somehow connected with the fact that he did not let Celia out of his room, because he knew that it was she, that girl. But for now, only he knows. While he was looking around the palace, and noticed that Celia was busy with something, and was surprised that she had other things to do until she served him. Does she never rest? After all, he thought up some tasks for her all night, and after that the girls have to work the whole next day without sleeping for several days. The emperor thought about how much hard work she had. Wrong minutes to rest. Does she really suffer like this every day? After all, men usually do such things because it is undesirable for a girl to carry such burdens. The game looked at how Celia works for so long, thereby she noticed him, but did not understand why he was watching her. After all, quite recently he ordered to leave his room. People accompanying him thought that he did not like something because he stopped and stood still. Well, the emperor's heart began to ache. Perhaps this is the effect after losing the essence. Girls noticed that the emperor was getting worse, and because of this she dropped the entire crop. But after that, something really strange happened, however, as usual. Everyone abruptly began to worry about the emperor and wondered what happened and how he felt, and didn't know how to act in this situation. When suddenly he abruptly ran up to Celia and covered her with his cloak. She did not expect this and did not understand what it could mean. No one understood this act, and at that time he sat next to her and looked into her eyes. Everyone was looking forward to what he would say, but in the eyes of others it looked more romantic than it actually turned out. He noticed that she had very dirty hands, and did she always touch him with these hands? But the girl explained that they always wash their hands thoroughly before coming to him. After that, the emperor demanded to immediately clean up all the dirt. Most people who love him are wrong. Therefore, the emperor hopes that Celia will be special. His eyes were all the same. But what could this mean? And what did he mean? Just because he left her around? She shouldn't be deluded into thinking she has a lot of free time. After that, he ordered to immediately go to him and wash. But in no case, do not go into the bedroom until he calls and allows you to enter. Once again, Celia didn't know what to expect from this conversation that was to come. It was unacceptable for him for a girl to appear in front of him, tired or in a bad way. So he gave her time to clean herself up, and after that she could come to his room. The emperor would not like to see how tired she would come to him and touch him with dirty hands. Leaving told her to pray that his anger would cool down, and of course the girl obeyed him. After all, it was important in no case to give him a reason to get angry. But most importantly, now she will be able to properly relax and enjoy the time of rest and tranquility. She dreamed about this for a long time, and finally such an opportunity appeared. In the meantime, 4 days had already passed. The emperor was talking with his assistant in his office. And something haunted him. He was upset about something. He made up his mind to write a letter, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. But why did he act so insecure? It was not at all like him. He could not get himself in order, because something was bothering him. It's been 4 days since the girl doesn't show up in the emperor's bedroom. Whole 4 days, but for him it seemed to last much longer. But why is he so worried about the fact that he was not with Celia during this time? After all, it was his order, and why can't he find a place for himself because of this? The emperor was sure, since the girl was in love with him, she would come to him much faster than 4 days, and would not miss the opportunity to be near him. He hoped that Celia would immediately run to him at the first opportunity. But everything turned out to be not as he imagined. Apparently he is not in the first place with her, and she has her own personal affairs besides him. He was so much afraid that the girl would begin to hate him, because the emperor was convinced that she clearly lacked rest precisely because of him. And perhaps the fact that he forbade Celia to see and come to the emperor was too harsh. In fact, the girl at that time enjoyed her rest, which she lacked so much. The assistant of the emperor got the impression that he was in love with Celia, since he is so worried that he did not see her for 4 whole days, and told him about it, because from the outside it seems that he cannot find a place for himself without her. To which the emperor replied that he likes it, not her, but how she manages to give massage. In addition, the emperor will be the head of the middle world, and it would not hurt to show mercy to people. And yet he could not resist, and ordered that Celia be brought immediately to his room. Apparently he missed her, but did not want to show that it was hard for him without her. The emperor was not very good at this because he treats other people quite ruthlessly, and for some reason the opposite is true for Celia. Assistants of the emperor are already tired of running around and looking for a girl all over the palace very often. At this time, she was informed that the emperor wished to see her immediately. At that time she was having lunch, and could not even imagine that the emperor would want to see her so quickly after what he had told her recently. Celia didn't mind, but would like to finish her meal first. As it turned out, this was of no interest to anyone. One woman advised her to first clean up the appearance of Celia a little before going to the emperor, and offered to wear some clothes that she thought should suit her, and asked to wash first and then put on clothes, then go up to the 2nd floor. And suddenly the girl realizes that there is the room of Mr. Emperor, but why he calls her, it was not clear to her. After some time, she put herself in order and arrived at the emperor. And it was noticeable that he was glad to see the girl after so much time. It was unusual for her that the emperor communicates with her quite well and is not at all rude towards her. After that, the emperor told the girl that from now on she would again be able to come to him every evening. He would be looking forward to her. And she tried her best to show something happy about it. But he wanted to tell her something. And before that he put her on his knees. She did not even have time to understand what happened. How he told her that he wanted to see her in his room in the morning before he opened his eyes. His words sounded very ambiguous because, at first he says that he wants to see her every morning, but in the end he drives her away in the mornings. Celia could not understand why he was so attached to her and did not want to choose another assistant, because, according to him, the girl constantly does something wrong. After that, he told her that he went out for a walk and saw an incredibly beautiful landscape, and perhaps he would walk again. To which Celia answered him, when he needs help, he can call her at any time when he needs it. And it turns out that the girls will have to come to him at 7 o'clock every morning just because he wanted to. Compared to what she had to do before, it's much easier. And yet Celia will have to spend the whole day with this crazy dragon. You can't imagine worse. She already dreamed that this torment would finally end, and she stopped serving and following the orders of this dragon, when suddenly he fell asleep and lay down on her shoulder. But it scared her a little, because usually after the emperor wakes up, he always gets angry at her and drives her out of the room. But she had no choice, because this is her job and she is obliged to do everything possible for his comfort. Even if she didn't like something, she didn't have the right to show it or talk about it. Therefore endured it, and long ago resigned herself to the fact that she was in the role of a servant for this dragon, due to a mistake in childhood, which is causing so many problems right now. When the emperor woke up, he took the girl outside with him, but did not say why and where they were going. A week has passed since her workplace was not the field as it was before, but his bedroom. But she does not regret it, because her life has become much more interesting and comfortable. I have to stand in the sun and harvest. And her job is to just have to massage the emperor in the evenings. And finally she will be able to eat well and sleep well, because before this she did not have enough. That Celia is comfortable around the dragon, who wants to destroy her, is too ironic, but that was her fate. And for a moment she forgot that. Happiness does not last long, because misfortune always comes suddenly. The emperor at some point got a surprise from a bird that flew over them. Although it was quite funny, but in no case should she show it, so as not to piss him off once again. But it turned out that it was not a bird, but some kind of dirt that got on his head because of some girl. She ran up to him and began to apologize. As the girl did not do it on purpose, she was very sorry that it happened. Everyone thought that he would now react as aggressively as possible to this. And to calm him down, Celia decided to do something that could at least somehow improve the situation. In this case, the girl had one method: to praise him, She told him that the beauty of him blinds, even when he is in the dirt. But it didn't work. He was still very angry. In this case, she had a second option. Take him somewhere. Celia suggested that he go wash up as his delicate skin might get hurt. And that didn't work either. And because of this, it was increasingly scary to be around him because of the expectation of what might happen while he was in anger. She saw that the Emperor was not going to make such a mistake to that girl and began to approach her. But this could not be allowed in any case. Celia had to use the third method. She just ran up to him and asked him to forgive this girl for the first time. The method was to beg for mercy, had to be reminded that the Emperor wanted to be lenient towards the people. Then reminded that the house where she lives is very close, and they can walk in just 5 minutes. In addition, it will be possible to take a bath there. The Emperor could not refuse this and ordered to lead to her house immediately. Did the girl succeed? She was very happy. That girl thanked her very much, and they were both so happy that they even cried of happiness. After a while, they finally ended up near her house. The Emperor was there for the first time, so Celia was a little worried. It was clear from the face of the Emperor that he was not entirely delighted with her house. He even asked if it was a cowshed. But Celia tried not to show that it was very insulting. After his words, the desire for the Emperor to be at her house disappeared, and she had to offer the Emperor to possibly return to the mansion. But he still decided to stay with her. Looked around the girl's house for a long time, showing with all his appearance that he expected something better, and not used to such conditions. Then asked where the bath is. And as it turned out in the house, the girl was not in the bathroom. But that's not all. The most interesting thing she told him later, namely, that there is not even hot water in the house. The Emperor did not expect to hear this at all. It was clear from his face that he had long regretted that he did not go to your mansion. But how can he put himself in order in such conditions? Celia asked to take off her clothes so that she could wash herself at last. But she felt something. What could it be? Some strange feeling did not leave her all the time while she saw the Emperor without clothes. For this, it seemed to her that she had already gone completely crazy. Because the Emperor looks beautiful even when covered in mud. Despite the fact that this is not the first time Celia has seen him without clothes, she still feels crazy embarrassed to stand in front of him at a moment like this. Therefore decided to wait for him outside, and if he needed anything, he could call her. It's still too tight. After so much time, when the girl saw him like this almost every day, for some reason she felt very strange every time. The Emperor was in the shower for too long, and despite the fact that he did not like the conditions, at Celia's house he managed to clean himself up. But for some reason he forgot to thank her for offering her help, despite the fact that it was not she who stained him with dirt. Even now she gets embarrassed when he is seen without clothes. After he got out of the shower, the girl invited him to go into the room, where a bed with a clean blanket was already prepared for him. But he showed with all his appearance that he was still dissatisfied and did not thank her for her hospitality. Celia made sure to wash his clothes, and they were clean for the next day. But as it turned out, her clothes were dirty too. It would have been good to throw everything in the laundry. But first she had to take a shower. She wanted to quickly relax and wash off everything that had accumulated during the day. After all, since she is already at home, why not take this chance? Especially since the person on whom she depends at work is in next room and obviously wouldn't mind if she took a shower for half an hour. Because she got it too, she had dirt marks on her. It was even strange for her to be at home at such a time, because lately she is rarely at home due to work, and since her work is at her home at the moment, she has nothing to worry about. She was able to calmly take a shower, not to rush anywhere, and at the same time she is at home and not at work. And at that time she recalled the moments when she was with the Emperor in his room, because she was there with them too close, and the atmosphere was not at all official. Celia will never forget how he hugged her in a dream and held her in his arms. At these moments she suspected that he just chose her for me as his servant because such coincidences do not happen. And suddenly noticed that she lingered in her soul due to the fact that from the Emperor. At this time, the clothes hung outside and dried after washing. Because she was so dirty to forget that it was impossible to dress her the next day. Then she went to the Emperor's room and knocked before entering. To which he allowed her to enter, and it was a little strange because she is at home. She just wanted to say that she had washed all the clothes, but she would have to wait until everything was dry. and at some point I caught myself thinking that I was at home, and at the same time knocking on the door before entering. But he was surprisingly calm. It was strange, because just recently he was dissatisfied with everything he sees and hears. Even though he behaves like this. This time everything went smoothly. For some reason, even being at home, she did not feel safe and was constantly worried about something. Her heart keeps beating wildly, not giving her peace of mind for a minute. At this time, the Emperor notices how nervous she is, and is interested in what is happening, because the girl is behaving inappropriately. When Celia finally calmed down, and she offered me to give him a massage while the clothes were drying, and at that time he could sleep. He thought about it for a while, and yet he agreed. Because I'm too tired for today, and it wouldn't hurt to relax. But it was unusual for the girl that she works at home. And under normal circumstances, she would sit in a chair. Well, since they're at her house, she doesn't have that luxury, and has to sit next to him on the bed. Because of this, it was a little unusual. There was no sense of work and responsibility. And a few days ago, she could not imagine that the Emperor would be at her house and lie on the bed without clothes. And this did not upset her in any way. On the contrary, it brought pleasure to her. She touched his ear at some point, and he didn't like it much. He removed Celia's hand and asked what she was doing. At this time, the girl was in a stupor, and she started thinking why she touched his ears at all. And since it was necessary to urgently answer something, she began to worry, and said his ears were too pretty, so she couldn't resist touching them. But what he did next changed their relationship forever, and I wonder how it ends. And suddenly he grabbed her by the hand. At first she thought that she had somehow angered him, and he wanted to shout at her. But things didn't turn out the way she thought. And abruptly laid on the bed, and sat on top of her, holding her hands. But what could this mean? For what purpose did he do this? And what happened next may just be shocking because it was unexpected of him. Apparently the moment came when it became impossible to hide feelings. He abruptly began to approach her and kiss. But at first it became very unpleasant for her because he did not ask if she, and started crawling under her skirt. Nothing could stop him, but he said that she has the right to push her away if she doesn't like something. And of course she likes it. But there is one point that is very important in this situation. He is a dragon who wants to destroy her if he knew who she really is. If she starts to resist, she risks her life. Plus, she liked him, so there was no reason to resist at this moment. And he sees that he can safely continue. She does not mind. Well, I wonder what will happen next between them, and what he will say after everything happens. The main thing is that the next day he does not do as usual, because it always happened that he drives her out of the room when the girl is next to him, in the morning, but it seems that this time the situation is completely different. Morning is not always refreshing. It can be difficult because you have to get out from under a cozy blanket to go to work. Today was just such a morning, but something did not go according to plan. The whole body hurt unbearably, and it was not clear where the clothes were. When suddenly she opens her eyes and sees that she is not at home. It was a place where she could not have been in the morning, because she had fallen asleep at home. It was the Emperor's office. His assistant was surprised why once again this girl was with him in the morning. But he did not see anything strange in this. At this time, Celia cannot understand and remember how she ended up here. After all, she slept so soundly that she did not notice how someone moved her and took her to his office. Emperor, at this time, calmly drinking tea as if nothing out of the ordinary has happened. When suddenly that assistant reminded the Emperor that he was going to destroy someone, and at that moment Celia was so frightened that she already wanted to escape from there as soon as possible. But the Emperor wondered why he would do this, as if he forgot about his goal to find that girl and destroy her. Every second the girl hoped that it was not about her, otherwise she would definitely be finished. But the assistant did not want to deviate from this topic, when suddenly he was already tired of this topic, and he asked to talk more about it, and decided to get rid of the assistant for some time so that he would go somewhere. But despite the fact that the Emperor did not want to discuss this topic, the girl did not stop worrying and fearing for her life. And at that moment, Power asked why this girl is here and why she appears in his office so often in the morning. The Emperor replied that he just wanted it, that's all. She was looking forward to what the Emperor would say to her, and why they started a topic about the girl he is looking for. After that, the Emperor ordered Roman to immediately leave the office. But he was in no hurry to leave the emperor and go. He made it clear that if it didn't happen, he would get very angry. And after that, the helper decided to listen to his emperor, and decided to leave so as not to anger him once again. Suddenly, they were alone in a room. The girl thought that he was looking at her too suspiciously, and this gave her even more fear and panic. He started getting up from his chair and walking towards her. Celia began to imagine how he will now mock her and try to destroy her. She was so scared that she blushed all over. But what he really wanted to do wasn't quite what she imagined. He started touching her and didn't look angry at all. She, on the contrary, did not need to be so worried and afraid of him. He didn't want to do her any harm. Celia needed some time to calm down. She screwed herself up again and imagined two terrible consequences, which in the end were not. And he is deeply mistaken if he thinks that she is worried. She was scared as much as ever. The moment she wasn't looking at him, he got even closer to her, and began to touch her hair so that it could know this time if he was not going to chase her away or yell at her as usual. Suddenly she began to understand why he sat so close and what he wants. And at that moment he began to think about whether... Yesterday he hugged this girl with caterpillar hair. Moreover, it was the first time he got so excited. This has never happened before with anyone, and never wanted as much as her. For him it was strange that next to her, it mixes passion and greed. These are disorderly feelings that did not leave him. After that, the emperor invites her to stay here today. She thought of refusing because it was wrong. He was very upset because he was sure that she could not refuse such. But then he turned around and saw some kind of view and part of her body, and he asked not to try to seduce him a second time. Celia had to decide what she was ready to go for and what not. But on the other hand, this misunderstanding can cost her dearly. She decided to apologize to him to avoid conflict, and invited him to rest together, in the hope that he will not be very upset after this. After that, she began to openly seduce him, and he immediately understood what she meant. Since he didn't mind at all, he understood everything. And then things began to happen that the two of them wanted, but could not resist. It all started with the fact that he just helped her get dressed. But she said she could handle it herself. But he let her know that it's better not to say anything, and she decided not to resist. After all, how can you refuse to spend time together?